Alrighty then, welcome to episode 25, quarter century of the SmartB Sports Update. How you going, man?
Good, thanks, John. Yourself, mate?
I'm fantastic. How'd you pull up after Melbourne Cup?
Yeah, very well. Good day, wasn't it? The big race on during the day there, John, and then Glenn Maxwell really did his thing on the same day. So Tuesday, a really huge day in Australian sport.
Absolutely. That Glenn Maxwell one I'm sure we'll spend a lot of time talking about.
Absolutely.
Before we kick off, our bookmaker for the month of November is EliteBet, so all of our odds will be coming to you from EliteBet. All bookmakers claim to offer service of some description, but at EliteBet, they generally pride themselves on offering exceptional personal service. It's not found in the bookmaking industry. You're an Australian-owned business where old-fashioned customer service really matters. EliteBet.com.au. Think, is this a bet you really want to place for free and confidential support? Visit gamblinghelponline.org.au. Yeah, well, before we get to the cricket, we can discuss the Melbourne Cup.
Yes.
We obviously ran our corporate launch party. That was the official launch of SmartB to the world. We did launch in June, but that was our official one. It was really interesting. Winning Edge, our Melbourne Cup sponsor, gave me some tips before the event, and I just followed exactly that. And I ended up breaking even, which after talking to Dean from Winning Edge, that's a good outcome.
Yeah.
That's what they kind of aim for, these professional punters, to either break even or win big. So the outcome was...
Yeah, so well done to Without a Fight on winning the race, John. Congratulations to winning jockey Mark Zara, winning trainers Anthony and Sam Friedman, and winning owner, forgive me for the pronunciation here, John, Sheikh Mohammed Obeid Al Maktoum. Well done to you on winning. John, we talked about Chris Waller having trouble winning this race. It actually turned out that he had 2 and 3 in the end with Solcombe and Shiraz, but he did miss out on the win again. So what Luke said in our preview podcast, just a couple of days before the race, turned out to be spot on in that regard. John, I actually I listened to what Luke said about Akita Sushi being the roughie to back. If you wanted to back one, I put 50 each way on Akita Sushi. It didn't come up for me, John, but I thought, hey, why not have a crack? If it had a 1, I would have been certainly doing all right at the end of the day, that's for sure. I use your strategy, John, of loading up on one of the outsiders.
Yeah, and I hope you learned that's not after meeting with Luke and Dean on Sunday and listening to them, and then your end result. Don't follow mine. My wife got me to bet for her, and I just randomly bet. I didn't want to follow exactly what I did, obviously. Yeah. And I put $20 on Solcombe to win Chris Waller horse. And it was paying $11 at the time, so it would have been awesome to win that one.
Absolutely.
The other one was with that Winning Edge tip, it had a few horses to bet on to win, and each way in a place, and then a box trifecta. And the box trifecta was going to be the big win. And if we had have won the box trifecta, it would have been like $10,000. But it was interpretation was the one that we needed to place. And Dean told me since then that was actually the reason interpretation didn't win was because it was a bad ride by the jockey, which is disappointing.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, John. If Chris Waller does watch this podcast or listen to us, I'd advise him to go back and listen to what Luke was saying in our Melbourne Cup preview 100%. Podcast.
But maybe Luke doesn't want him to. Because there was the other one, actually, because one of the things I saw on the internet was about Solcombe. At one point, Solcombe and Without a Fight were actually right next to each other. Basically, Solcombe was slightly behind Without a Fight, and Without a Fight went right through the pack, and Solcombe went left through the pack, and that's what kind of lost. So if Solcombe had just followed Without a Fight, maybe he would have had a better line and won the race. As I said, I don't know enough about horse racing to really know if what I saw on Instagram was correct, but the video sure looked like it.
It was a great day out, though, that we had on Tuesday, John. It was great to meet everybody, put a face to some names. I had a good chat to producer John on Tuesday as well. John got to know him a lot better, which was nice.
I didn't even know he speaks. And yeah, special thanks to Matt from Elite Bet for coming out and getting people signed up and allowed to place bets on the day. It was an awesome time. Can't wait.
Yeah, I did sign up to Elite Bet too, John.
Yes, he gave great service.
Yeah, that was the smartest thing I did all day, John, was sign up to Elite Bet.
Yeah. What happens afterwards is not his responsibility. Always bet with your head not over it, Dan. So yeah, Melbourne Cup was awesome. That was the first time I've really actually got into it. Yeah, I was really hoping for one of my horses to come out better, but breaking evens, it's a good result.
You take that, John. You did better than me, that's for
exactly.
sure.
And one of the guys in the SmartB office randomly bet. I saw him. He was like, just pressing anything.
The Homer Simpson.
Yeah. And he ended up winning like $500 off 50. So
yeah, there you go.
Lunch is on Ronnie today.
I think he's unlocked the secret, John.
But onto the cricket.
Yes.
As always, we like to start with Australia, but anyway, coincidentally, that's the one that's first. Australia was screwed. Afghanistan looked like they were going to get away with it. Was it? Australia was 97 for...
7 for 91, John. 7 for 91 and ended up 7 for 293. Just extraordinary from Glenn Maxwell. Unbelievable innings, and Pat Cummins played his part too, staying with him.
Yeah, well, he's tweeted that since then. People who should be giving him more credit. I'll give him more credit. He was there for what was it? He did 12 off 68 balls, and it seemed like afterwards like he did nothing. But he was there for 68 balls.
He held up
faced
an end.
68 balls, so he was there for a long time as well.
Held up an end, did his job, John.
Yeah. All his job was to get one run if he was at the crease, and swap him over.
Yeah. Or even just block out to the end of the over and get Maxwell on strike. But yeah, the numbers here, John, the numbers are just staggering if you bear with me. So the 201 not out that Glenn Maxwell scored against Afghanistan. He's the first batter to score a double century for Australia in men's ODIs, John. Shane Watson's 185 not out against Bangladesh in 2011 in Mirpur was the previous highest score for Australia. Maxwell is the first batter to score a double century during an ODI run chase. Maxwell is also the first player to score an ODI double ton while batting at number 3 or lower. So there you go. So there's now 3 batters with double hundreds at the Men's ODI World Cup. Maxwell joins Chris Gale and Martin Guptill as well, John. The unbeaten 202 run partnership between Maxwell and Pat Cummins that we just touched on, John. It's the highest for the 7th wicket or lower in the history of men's ODIs, John. The 128 balls Maxwell needed for his double century, it's the second fastest ODI double ton ever. The 202 runs added by Australia after the fall of their 7th wicket is the most by any team in an ODI innings. Just staggering numbers here, John.
Just keep breaking records.
Yeah, the 179 runs contributed by Maxwell during his unbeaten 202 run stand with Cummins for the 8th wicket. As we said, Cummins scored 12 off the 68 balls he faced, while another 11 runs came through extras. So Maxwell's contribution to that partnership of 88.61% of runs. It's the highest by a batter in a century stand in men's ODIs, where data is available. Maxwell bettered his own contribution of 88.35% during his 103-run stand with Cummins against the Netherlands in Delhi, John, not long ago. He made 91 of those runs. So 177 runs. The difference between Maxwell's score of 201 not out and the second highest score in Australia's innings, which was Mitch Marsh's 24. Only twice has there been a bigger difference between the two top scores in an ODI innings. And I'm not done, John. Those are the stats. This is the reaction. Pat Cummins, and I quote, said, "I think that's the greatest ODI innings." Obviously referring to Maxwell. Sachin Tendulkar, one of the greatest batsmen in the history of the game, John, said, "From max pressure to max performance, this has been the best ODI knock I've seen in my life," Tendulkar wrote on Twitter. Our great friend Michael Vaughan from the great Club Prairie Fire podcast, John. said, and I quote, "The greatest ODI knock of all time, without any doubt."
It's true.
There you go, John. That's some huge reaction to that innings.
Like, I went back and watched it. I thought they just sat, like, skipped, obviously, to him coming out and watching. The fact he did it with massive cramps, back spasms. Like, at one point he couldn't walk. The physio convinced him to get back up and keep going. I love the fact that he needed... they needed a 6 on... And they win, and he just hits a 6. Like, it was absolutely ridiculous. Beyond, like, nothing like it has ever happened in cricket, and maybe nothing like it ever will again. Like, and that's his job. You know, he's the big show. He's got to come out if Australia isn't. Afghanistan was celebrating, right? They were looking like they were into the 4. You know, they could have possibly pipped the run rate. Then that run rate would have been a massive difference because it was like 97. So they were like, you know, their net rate's going to jump enough possibly to actually be the one that beats New Zealand into the top 4. And then Glenn Maxwell just said no.
Yeah, and obviously, John, because of what time it was on, we were sleeping while this was going on. But, you know, it's 7 for 91. You had to be thinking, well, gee, Australia's in strife here. They'll probably get bowled out for about, 110, 120. And then we'd be having a very different conversation now, John. We'd be talking about how Australia got thrashed by Afghanistan of all teams, and we'd be really concerned about Australia's, form going into the semi-finals. I mean, I'm guessing Australia probably still would have qualified for the semis had they lost that game.
Yeah, they definitely would have because no other team can get to 12 points. So that at that point, the top 3 was confirmed anyway. But it was that 4th position that was in contention with New Zealand, Pakistan, and Afghanistan, whoever finishes winning with the highest net run rate.
But yeah, anyway, yeah. So it's a I guess it's not a conversation we need to have now, John, is it? Thanks to Glenn Maxwell.
Yeah.
And John, I think now that this is the first time where I think all tournament we've been going, look, Australia are winning ugly. Australia are doing what they have to do, but they're not really setting the world on fire. They're not really showing us any signs.
Yeah, the only massively good one was the Netherlands. Like it's the Netherlands.
Yeah, exactly. And I know this is Afghanistan, but that performance from Maxwell to be able to do that says to me that Australia can win this tournament now. If he catches fire. Even though India's clearly the dominant team in this World Cup, there's no arguing with that. But if Maxwell can catch fire like he did against Afghanistan, there's no stopping Australia, John.
And there's a few players in the team that can do that. You know, there's like Steve Smith can also do that, and that's one of the we've talked about why you can't drop him. Because
David Warner, Travis Head.
Those guys can do that. I mean, like I said, I don't think we'll ever see anything like that happening again. They're not going to hit 200. But there are things like where... like 2015 where Dave Warner will get caught on 11 and you just think like that's the second out. This is going to be bad. And then Steve Smith walks out and wins the match basically single-handedly. There's a bunch of players in the Australian team that no matter what their form is, they can just single-handedly win a match at the bat. So I have full confidence now.
Yeah, and I know it was against Afghanistan, but that innings was that good that you sort of almost disregard that, John.
It doesn't matter if it was Afghanistan because the fact was it was like
7 for 91.
Yeah, Afghanistan was on fire.
Yeah. At 7 for 91, John, if you had been watching it live, what percentage chance would you have given Australia to win from that position?
Well, this was the thing, right? If I would have just been like, no, they've lost, right? And
0% chance?
Literally 0% chance. So if I go check the odds fluctuations, brought to you by Elite Bet, I actually did check this the other day, right? So, where is it? It's a fluck. So you can go to smartb.com.au and check the historical odds fluctuations and even see the chance that Australia, that the bookies were giving.
Yeah.
Australia was paying $41.
At that point.
$41. Nobody, that's the chance that people are giving them, like $41. Afghanistan dropped to $5 at this point, okay? And now they started the week at like $4.20 and stuff, but they went out to $6.50. And so You know, we talked about it a few weeks ago when Afghanistan was playing a bit Pakistan, and even in the last over, it was so close, they were still paying $4. But that's the kind of thing where it's like, no matter what, Afghanistan will always pay $5.
So is that right, John? So even at 7 for 91, Afghanistan were paying $5 to win.
Yeah.
Extraordinary.
But that's because it's Afghanistan, not because it's Australia. Yes. And you know they had in the Pakistan game match, they had the run rate, they had the ball was rolling. They were definitely going to win, but even like second last over, even last over, they were still paying like $4.50 or something to beat Pakistan. 7 for 91, $5 for Afghanistan to beat Australia is actually good odds. Like that's the best they're going to get.
I'll tell you what, John. If you had have offered me $5 on Afghanistan at 7 for 91, I would have taken it.
Exactly.
I would have loaded up on
and
that.
Australia blew out
gamble responsibly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So that's not the story of it. Like that doesn't tell you the story unless you know enough about odds to realise that Afghanistan paying $5 to beat Australia is actually super good odds, like the best they're ever going to get, basically, for $5. But Australia was out to $41. Whoever put $5
I should have got on that instead of Akita Sushi.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and the end, right? They closed out the match at Australia paying $13. That was the last odds update. Because at no point during that match, no matter how Glenn Maxwell was going, would anybody have really thought, like statistically, because obviously bookmakers aren't watching the match and adjusting their odds. It's algorithmically done. Yeah. So a computer was basically giving them Australia $13 compared to Afghanistan's $5.50 to win, no matter how much the rate was, because of that 7 ounce.
Yeah. So Sorry, John. Does it tell us at what point the odds were suspended completely?
No, we're getting that done soon.
Right.
Okay. Because that's the kind of thing we're looking for.
It's interesting.
Yeah, because that gives you a lot of data that you can use. And that's one of the goals of SmartB, to give everyone all of the data. So if you do have if anyone watching or who uses SmartB has any requests for data that they might want to see, shoot us on Facebook, Instagram, anywhere. Send us an email at info@smartb.com.au, because we'll find that data and we'll try and get it into the system. You want to be able to go to, just a little bit off track, but you want to be able to go to a match at any given time and say, what is the percentage chance based on all of the data that Australia is going to win this? And you shouldn't have to look at the odds for that. You should just be able to get a chance. And so coming soon is a win predictor, which is an artificial intelligence based system that will do this for you and tell you. And it'll be wrong because Australia shouldn't have won. But they're Australia, and they did. And Glenn Maxwell did something superhuman. He was suffering from back spasms. I don't know how he's going to play this week.
Unbelievable, John. And just looking at that Australian batting card. So I'll just work down the page, John. David Warner, 18. Travis Head, a duck. Mitch Marsh, 24. Marnus Labuschagne, 14. Josh Inglis, a first ball duck. Stoinis, 6. Mitchell Stark, 3. Cummins 12 not out, and Maxwell 201 not out, 21 fours and 10 sixes, 128 balls. You would never see a cricket scorecard like that in your life, John.
And that's why Australia was paying $41.
Unbelievable. That's the most bizarre cricket scorecard you will ever see in your life.
Yeah, I don't think anything like that could ever possibly happen again.
And John, on the commentary at the end, Ricky Ponting, a very good commentator, John, said to his co-commentators at the time, I have never seen anything like this in all my time watching the game. Unbelievable, John.
And the fact that it was in a World Cup as well, like this is the highest
pinnacle
level
of cricket.
There's nothing higher.
And that's the thing, Afghanistan, a lot of people look at it and go, it's Afghanistan. They're having a good tournament, John.
Yeah, well,
they're taking it to these
teams.
They
were pushing for fourth. If they had won that, and they almost won it, they could have been fourth. And keep going back to it, they've won exactly 5 matches ever in the history of World Cup, 4 of them in this. Yeah. They are beating England.
Yeah, they beat Pakistan.
They beat Pakistan. They're ahead of England. They're ahead of other,
They beat Sri Lanka?
Yeah, teams that should be ahead of them, like Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, they're ahead of them. The only team that should be behind Afghanistan in this ladder is Netherlands. Because when you go through the top 8 in the world, you obviously go through the top 3 or 4 and there's a sharp drop to the next few. But when you go through from 8 to Afghanistan, who's ranked 9th in the world, it's a super sharp drop off in theory, but not anymore. We'll see what Afghanistan can do with this for the next couple of years and up to the next World Cup. But
yeah, making 5 for 291 against Australia from the 50, that's nothing to be sneezed at.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. If you haven't watched it, at least just go and watch Glenn Maxwell's innings, because that is
Yeah, I noticed on Fox they did a mini just of Maxwell's innings.
Well, that was the whole match for Australia. And yeah, the fact, even the. I love the commentary at that last ball where it was like, well, he needs a 6. Do you think you'll do? I think he's going to hit a 6.
Yeah.
And he just did. He's like, all right, cool. Because it's kind of like, I'm done with this. I've been out here for ages. Yeah. I've done all the work.
Ian Smith, the great New Zealand cricket commentator, he was in hysterics watching it, John. And you can imagine how much he would have wanted Afghanistan to win, being a New Zealander. Yeah. And he was just blown away, as were the other commentators. And no doubt everybody who was watching it live, John.
Actually, if Afghanistan had have won at that rate, then, and based on New Zealand's outcome last night, which we'll get to soon, New Zealand would currently be sitting at 3rd again. Australia's obviously still have 1 to play. It's not the most difficult match in the world. But, yeah, New Zealand would like their chances. If Australia had lost to Afghanistan, New Zealand would like their chances of finishing 3rd, which would have guaranteed their spot. But, yeah, absolutely phenomenal. It's not enough compliments. It'll be talked about forever.
Yeah. We could talk about it all day, couldn't we, John?
It's like a Hall of Fame. Historically, in 100 years, they'll still be talking about it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's with cricket and sports in general, but cricket especially, because it is such a world game and so universally loved across a whole bunch of them. You do talk about things from 100 years ago, Yeah. You still do. There are things this is in 100 years. People are going to be talking about look at the highlights, and they're going to have the videogram or whatever, and they're going to be watching old rips to whatever technology they're using now of Glenn Maxwell's innings. And there'll be YouTube channels that'll get shut down over showing this kind of highlights for 100 years, man.
Like Ro Belinda too.
Yeah, exactly. So if we don't stop now, we're going to keep going. We could talk about versus Bangladesh, because there's a lot of controversy in this game.
Yeah, that was an eventful one, John.
Bangladesh did it, which is good. Happy to see Bangladesh win, because we wanted to keep England stuck to the bottom of the table, but unfortunately England screwed us over in the next match. But the main talking point of this is the timeout.
John, there's a lot of sentiment going against Bangladesh here. A lot of people, are unhappy with the way they handled it, and felt like, a lot of people feel like firstly they shouldn't have appealed, but once they appealed and it was given out that they should have called Matthews back. I don't know, John. I mean, the rules are the rules, John. I mean, that's one thing I don't understand about cricket is they have rules, and like we saw with Alex Carey and Johnny Bairstow in the Ashes, there are rules in place, and when all players do is play to them, that people get hysterical.
They have the gentleman's game nonsense with cricket. I think it's a bit of a dud rule in the fact that, because the reason what was the player's name?
Angelo Matthews.
Yeah, so he got timed out because his helmet was broken.
That's the thing. It's like, next time get a helmet where the strap doesn't break, or next time check the strap on your helmet
before you get all the way to
everything. You can put a lot of the blame on Matthews himself.
If you think about it though, if he had have batted and then his helmet broke 1 ball later.
Yeah, that's true.
He would have. That's
true. So it's an issue with the rules.
Yeah, I mean, the rules are the rules, and you always got to play to the rules. Okay, 100%. There is in all sports. There's all these kind of things. Tennis is a classic one, actually. Which it's your game, so you can understand. There's a timer for how long you're allowed to take between serves, and for the most part, historically especially, they kind of let it slide a little bit, and we're a bit more lax in it. I just remember seeing Roger Federer rattled and angry and emotional for the first time ever when he was playing Djokovic, and Djokovic was taken on purpose. He was doing it on purpose. What he was doing was stretching and breaking the rules, knowing that no one would punish him. And now they're a little bit more strict, I find, on it, So there are rules and things in sports that people are a little bit more relaxed because the players and umpires and crowd don't like them. It's the rules are the rules and all, but cricket has way too much of this. It's a gentleman's sport. And so even the Bangladesh bowling coach, Alan Donald, he's not happy. He said it's a disappointing act that he doesn't like. His quote was, "It was really difficult to watch that unfold. One of Sri Lanka's all-time greats walking off the field without a ball bowled to him being given out for time. That's where I stand on that," he told crickblog.net. He didn't tell me, I got off crickblog.net. He also talked about how he wanted to run out onto the field and tell them, like, not to do it. But he's just the bowling coach, so he can't do that. I'm like, bro, I don't think anybody. Doesn't matter if you're the bowling coach or not. I don't think anyone's allowed in cricket to just run out on the field and go, "Hey guys, let's not do what we just did."
I don't think. I don't think that would be allowed, John.
Well, there's definitely going to be a book about this in the future.
If Johnny Bairstow's writing one. But yeah, John, I just get a helmet that doesn't have a strap that breaks.
You can't whine when you break the rule and the rule affects you, even if you want to say, like...
That's the thing. You may disagree with the rule and the process, but can you really blame Bangladesh in this scenario? They're just playing to their advantage. It's gamesmanship, John, but gamesmanship happens. I mean, blame the rule if you want, and I get that argument, John, that you pointed out, that, you know, if he had a faced a ball and it happened... On the second ball he faced, no one would have batted an eyelid, and the game continues. So I understand that, but
it's a reason to look at the rule, not a reason to complain about the outcome.
Yes,
and there was we've talked about Rugby League before, changing the rules in the middle of the thing and having way too many rules updates and stuff like that, and me just wanting them to stick with the rules for a little while. But when Josh Reynolds kicked a ball into the umpire,
the referee, yes, 2014
to get it back,
semi-final against Manly, yes,
it was the best thing ever. All right, it's a stupid rule. It absolutely, because he kicked on the fifth.
Exploited the rules.
Right?
Yeah.
Nobody in Rugby League went, well, that's just bad gamesmanship on Josh Reynolds' behalf. Mm-hmm. What happened was, everyone went, mate, that's brilliant gamesmanship on Josh Reynolds' behalf. Yeah. I loved it. It was awesome, right?
Yeah.
Like in cricket, like this is a little bit different because it's not like an action. There's never going to be a highlight. It's not something they can ever use for marketing. Yeah. Josh Morris going,
and that was at a really crucial point in the game, which they ended up winning too.
So, like, that's if you want to really get into this kind of nonsense, like, it's just the hypocrisy of man I always talk about, you know, like, in certain circumstances, people will be like, oh, good gamesmanship and exploiting the rules and understanding the rules, and then others, they'll be like, well, that just goes against the spirit of the game. Spirit of the game is determined by the rules, 100% of the time, in every game.
Yep.
You know, like, here is a rule, play to this rule. Mm. And you go like, oh, we don't follow that rule? Cool, man, that's just free parking and Monopoly.
Yeah, exactly, Joel.
This is professional. In professional Monopoly, they don't have the free parking rule. Okay, because it's against the spirit of the game.
Yeah, that's right, John. And let's put it into context as we always do, John. Bangladesh won by 3 wickets, not 1 wicket. So how does Sri Lanka explain the rest of the match then? That was 1 wicket that fell. But as I said, Bangladesh won by 3 wickets, not 1.
You're showing your ignorance of cricket here, Dan, because you know. Stumping in the Ashes affects your World Cup outcome.
Oh, sorry. Please forgive me, John.
Yeah,
Please forgive me.
Learn your cricket more, okay?
Again, one incident in the context of a full match. Sri Lanka, they're second last on the table. What are they? They're not going to go down England's path and blame the whole tournament on one moment, John.
Yeah, well, they're not whingers. You would hope. But
no, surely they couldn't be as bad as England, John. Nobody could be.
I mean, we'll see what happens in next year's Asia Cup if Sri Lanka doesn't make the final again. They'll be like, it's all Bangladesh's fault. But it's the rules are the rules. I don't like the rule. I wish it didn't happen because I don't like the rule. Actually, it's a stupid rule.
Yeah, we can't blame Bangladesh for playing to it.
If he was the rule should be, I believe, the rule should be based around intention. So if he was intentionally delaying the speed of the game, not shivers, I just got to the thing and my helmet's broken, because the helmet is so important when you're facing a fast bowler. You know, it's so important. They don't want to get hit in the head. They don't want to take serious injury. So he couldn't have batted. He couldn't have put it on broken, you know.
But maybe being dismissed is too harsh a penalty for not getting there quickly enough. Maybe instead you need to dock the team 5 runs or something.
Something like
dock
that would
5
be
runs rather than somebody being out for that.
Somebody should have checked. What they really need to learn from this is the equipment manager needs to check every single helmet before they give it to the player.
That's right, and I don't think it'd be too soft to change the rule to 5-run penalty for the team rather than the player being out, because that's still enough of a deterrent, John. Teams wouldn't want to be docked 5 runs.
Exactly.
So you still got the deterrent there. That's the thing. If he's docked 5 runs, if the team total is, if 5 runs are taken off the team total, this isn't as big a deal, John. It's not.
And they would have appealed and they got it, and you would actually see it more. If the punishment was less, you would see it more, and then you would see it less.
Yeah. It's like if, John, you might see sometimes that they put the helmet down like behind the wicket keeper or something. If the ball happens to come in contact with that helmet that's on the ground, it's a 5-run penalty for the fielding team.
Exactly.
It should be the same for this sort of thing.
And it's because that doesn't happen very often. Because when they introduce a rule like that, they adjust the rule based on normally one happenstance, and then you might see it happen a few more times, and then it won't happen. That's the beauty of cricket, right? They learn very quickly. It's not like rugby league where they'll adjust the rules, and then for the next year it takes them ages, and they never adjust, and then they just stop enforcing that rule. Cricket players and cricket teams learn. 100% Sri Lanka is now going to check every single helmet for the rest of Sri Lankan cricket.
Yeah. Well, one other thing I would say, John, the Bangladesh captain, I think it's Shakib, and Matthews had some very, very strong words for him, John. Said, it is obviously disgraceful from Shakib and Bangladesh. That was his quote. He wasn't happy. But what I would say, John, I noticed that Shakib at the end tried to sort of absolve himself of responsibility by saying, oh, look, it wasn't me. The other players in my team came up to me and said, oh, if you appeal, it'll be out. No. If you're the captain, you take responsibility. Think what you want about it, John. We have our opinions on it, which we've expressed. But if you're the captain and your team appeals and he's given out and you don't call him back, it's on you.
Yeah.
Don't blame it on your teammates coming up to you. You're the captain. That's part of your responsibility, is to be held accountable in these situations. You can't throw the whole, it was my teammates told me. No, you're the skipper, mate. I think that's the worst thing on Shakib's part in this whole thing, John. I think that's a lot worse than the fact that they actually appealed and Matthews was dismissed.
That's terrible leadership. He should have his captaincy stripped, to be honest.
Atrocious leadership. Atrocious.
If I was the coach, I'd strip his captaincy.
Straight away. Just because of that.
Yeah. Straight away. Take responsibility. You're captain. You're meant to lead. You're not meant to blame your team.
100%.
We've talked about before, coaches who blame their team and things like that. It's just, that's not part of being a leader. There's a fine line, and he's way over one side of the line on that one.
Yeah, so that was the quote. Shakib, the quote from Shakib was, one of our fielders came to me and said that if I appealed, he would be out. No, that one of our fielders, mate, you're the captain, and it's on you.
Who chooses to appeal?
Yeah, the captain. Exactly. In that scenario, the captain.
Exactly. So even if someone suggests to you, you have to make the choice. You take responsibility.
Yeah, and even if the it wasn't the captain who appealed, even if it was other players, the captain still has the option of calling him back. And he didn't.
That's ridiculous.
So it's on the captain.
I think the worst outcome of that entire thing is Shakib's behaviour. And as I said, he's the one who should be punished by his captaincy being stripped. You don't blame your team. Take responsibility.
Yeah, it's pathetic, isn't it, John?
Yeah. The idea of being a leader is you get credit when your followers do something, and you give credit to your followers. You take criticism and you prevent criticism from being put onto your followers. So you protect and you reward. You don't stick the knife in. Yeah, that's terrible behaviour. Absolutely appalling.
Yeah, to say that publicly, to pin it on one of his fieldsmen, that's
terrible.
Pathetic and hopeless on his part.
And then we can move right along to the biggest disappointment of the tournament. England is now in 7th. Because they beat the 14th
The Netherlands,
ranked team in the world.
Yes.
It's-
I mean, it was a nothing game, John, so that's
But-
I mean, the only thing is that they're probably going to qualify for the Champions Trophy now.
Bangladesh won. I was so happy. But then England had to go and win.
I mean, we don't need to spend much time on this game, John. It's a nothing game.
Yeah.
England 9 for 339, Netherlands 179. England won by 160 runs.
It's shown the last couple of games has shown it's definitely like the Netherlands cricket team is not ready for a full World Cup, but are almost there. So in the next World Cup, I think they'll be the Afghanistan. They might do a bit better, but the tournament's too long. The other teams have got them worked out. Even someone as crappy as England can beat the Netherlands.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. England had a big win over the Netherlands. I mean, they were expected to perform that way for a lot more of the tournament than what they did. So.
Exactly. And I would say the only reason they had a big win over the Netherlands is because it's so late in the tournament and Netherlands can't really perform anymore. Not talking that bad about the Netherlands. They've done an absolutely remarkable job. The fact they won 2 games, but, they're the worst team in the World Cup. And England is only now not the worst team, actually, because they beat Netherlands.
Yeah. And it's only consolation that England are playing for now, getting into that 2025 Champions Trophy. Apart from that, it's still a horror, it's a horror show. The World Cup's been a horror show, and that one result over the Netherlands doesn't change that.
Yeah, unfortunately, when we get to previews and breaking down the standings, they've pretty much qualified now. New Zealand versus Sri Lanka last night. Outcome is New Zealand won and basically confirmed their place in the 4.
So that's right, John. So now that the scenario is
Basically.
this, dominant 5-wicket win for New Zealand with 160 balls to spare, John. Over Sri Lanka there. The result takes them to 10 points and a net run rate of 0.743. So that leaves Pakistan needing to beat England by 287 runs. Not going to happen.
You never know.
While Afghanistan need an even more fantasy land 438-run win over South Africa if they're to surpass New Zealand's net run rate. So this is the thing, John. If Pakistan are chasing in that game against England, they have no chance of qualifying. So they must bat first and win by that margin of 287 or more runs. So it's highly, 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 highly unlikely that Pakistan could take that 4th spot off
they
New
can,
Zealand, I should say.
but they won't. And if they do, they'll also drop England back out of that.
I spoke to Yash about it outside, John, before we came in. He was saying Pakistan would need to bat and obviously and need to score 500 basically, and then bowl England out for 200 or less. So it's
maybe they can bat and go in for 300, and then they can bowl England out for 20.
That's the thing, John. I mean, it would. I mean, if it were to happen, John, it'd set up a blockbuster semi between England. They're nowhere near the semis.
Yeah.
Between India and Pakistan, I should say.
Yeah. So, if you look at it, Pakistan, 205, they haven't really set the world on fire with the bat, to be honest. 282. 305, I think, is their biggest...
Yeah, I mean, they did get rained out at 1 for 200 odd against New Zealand, and that was midway through the innings, so...
They got that Duckworth look.
Could you sort of hang your hat on that and go, well, if they were to, if they had batted that whole 50 overs, could they have,
Well, they have the potential. They do have the potential if they bat, because against Australia as well... so Australia set the target of 367. Obviously, Pakistan didn't bat first, but Pakistan got to 305 in 45.3 overs. And it is England. It's no Australia, So, and then, against New Zealand, they got 200. Where is it? It was 1 for 200, and it was 32.3 overs. No, that's not it. I'm looking at the wrong one.
I think it was 25.3 overs from memory. Yeah.
25.3. So, in 2 of the matches this tournament against powerhouse teams, they have scored enough runs to do this. but then you have to go back and they also have to get England out. So they can get the runs. They can definitely get the runs. Getting England out, it's less likely, because then if you go and look at their, I think the only team they've actually like gotten all out. Yeah, they. See, like they got South Africa out. No, South Africa bat second. Yeah, they can't do it, man.
The only remote chance, John, would be bat first, score 450, and then somehow roll England for under 150.
Yeah.
You know, or under 160. Yeah, but
they haven't.
I mean, you know, it's high. It's so improbable, John, that you'd think New Zealand are there.
Yeah, they haven't done that. Got anyone out that quickly? Anyone? Actually. So like anybody. Even so they got Bangladesh all out for 204 in 45 overs. That's still too much.
So I wonder what England would do if England win the toss, knowing that their opponents have to bat.
They'll bat
first.
Surely they'll bat.
So you reckon England would?
Yeah, just to ruin the dream.
England would bat just to take the air out of the tyres.
Yeah. Just to ruin the dream, because and
then they'd be deflated and England would be more chance of winning. Yeah,
and so England will retain their spot, because England need to win, and they need to. England need to win or not lose by a lot.
To save some face here.
Yeah, well, they need to win or not lose by a lot to retain their 7th position or 8th position.
Yeah.
So batting first would mean they could set a target that Pakistan could run down, but would then realise like, oh, we can't actually make the 4, so we won't play as well, and probably won't.
So Pakistan.
And remember, Pakistan doesn't need to finish anywhere for the Champions Trophy.
So Pakistan's hopes could be dashed at the toss of the coin, John.
Yeah.
It could be all over at the coin toss.
We have jumped ahead to a preview there, so I'll just give an odds check.
Yeah, sorry, yeah.
So it's very close odds. England are at $1.83 and Pakistan are at $1.98. Again, all of our odds brought to you by Elite Bet. Bet with your head not over it. I would think Pakistan's going to go into bat first. England's going to go into bat first, whoever wins the toss. And the outcome is solely based on England trying to save some face and say it wasn't as bad as it looked, because it's as bad as it looked. Okay, it doesn't matter, but they can use misdirection, so it wasn't as bad as it looked. And Pakistan will try and go in and just they'll probably bazball it. Why not?
Yeah, they'll have to. Yeah.
They'll have to go for a 2020 style knock and try and get 400.
Yeah.
And just
there's obviously no point playing for a safe win for Pakistan. They're better off losing, having tried to win by this margin, than playing it safe. Here, there's no playing.
And then you're going to see a lot of like gamesmanship in the Pakistan's bowling innings. Other previews. South Africa versus Afghanistan is actually... So, the New Zealand versus Sri Lanka was the beginning of round 9. So, these are the last 4 matches of the regular season.
Yeah, the group stage, yeah.
That's it. South Africa versus Afghanistan on Friday. That's today. So, we are one day late because of me. And so, South Africa's paying $1.26, Afghanistan $3.80.
Yeah.
I think Afghanistan's given everything they possibly can against Australia.
Yeah. And, John, one thing we got to be a bit mindful of is, I think we know that South Africa and Australia are going to meet in that semi-final 2v3, but we still don't know which of them is going to be 2 and which of them is going to be 3. But what you got to be careful of with these sorts of games are things like, well, what happens if the games are tight? And then so it does matter who comes. You'd still want to come second and not third, because if it's a tie, the team that finishes higher, I presume would go through to the final just because they finished the group stage higher. So that's the thing.
True,
There's still. I don't think it's a case of looking at it and going, it doesn't matter. They're going to come 2 or 3. It doesn't matter. You still want to finish as high as possible, John. There's things like, I think there is a reserve day for the semi-finals, but there is things like wet weather to think about. What happens if it's a tie? What happens if it's if they get a lot of it in and then it rains? I mean, there's a reserve day, but it could rain on the reserve day. These things could come into play, John. So you still want to finish second and not third.
And South Africa is currently plus 1.376 to Australia's plus 0.861. So South Africa's going to want to retain that.
Yeah.
You know, so they're going to want to like dominate Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Afghanistan's going to be smarting hard, and at no point can you say that even if Afghanistan's up 7 for 91, you don't know what's going to. Obviously, no one's going to do a Glenn Maxwell, but that's what Afghanistan will. For a long time, Afghanistan will have that at the back of their mind. No matter how much we're winning against these guys like Australia, South Africa, India, New Zealand, somebody can Glenn Maxwell us. And that's so they'll always have that worry.
Yeah.
They're going to be the Afghanistan is basically the Broncos of the Cricket World Cup now.
Yeah, nice line. Nice one.
Then Australia versus Bangladesh is on Saturday. Quick odds check. As you would expect, Australia's paying $1.12 unbackable to Bangladesh's $6.10. Australia's going to win. And even if they do win...
Surely.
So, yeah, look, if South Africa and Australia both win, they'll both still be on the 14 points.
That's the thing. So South Africa play first, don't they? They play tonight. So South Africa, we're assuming they're going to crush Afghanistan or beat Afghanistan fairly comfortably. So then Australia will know what they need to do to finish second, and it may be, looking at their net run rate, it may be a completely unrealistic scenario where Australia don't have to chase that second spot, and then Australia can sort of, relax to a degree, knowing that, things aren't going to change.
Even if they lose.
Yeah, even if that's the thing, Australia can't finish any lower than third.
Yeah, so if they can't catch that South African net run rate,
then they can afford to maybe experiment a little bit in this game.
Especially with the batting order.
Yeah. Maybe even if the fast bowlers are carrying a niggle or two, you could rest one, have a look at someone else. And Australia's earned that right. They've earned that luxury because they've won 6 games in a row to qualify.
This is Penrith and Broncos all over again. You know, if Broncos beat Melbourne, then Penrith won't bother playing their full team. If the Broncos get beat by Melbourne, Penrith are going to go and smash whoever it was. Can't remember who it was. So, yeah, that's basically it. If South Africa do a job on Afghanistan, gain another, 0.5 net run rate, Australia's going to go, we'll just take it easy. They could probably tinker with their batting order, which is something they need to do, I think. And then beat up Bangladesh a little bit, and Bangladesh though, if they lose by, so they're minus 1.142 to Sri Lanka's minus 1.419. If they lose by too much, they'll drop below Sri Lanka and miss out on the Champions Trophy. So Bangladesh is going to be trying really hard. So it's kind of a little bit intriguing, but with Australia paying $1.12, you know what the outcome is on a win. But it'll be interesting to see what what both teams do. England versus Pakistan.
Oh yeah, we've
covered that one.
We've done that
and
one.
then India versus Netherlands is a joke.
Yeah, that's just going to be.
So I would suggest you bet the house on India at $1.02 to Netherlands $13. It's that's just a bet you really want to place.
That's a David versus Goliath match. That one, John.
Well, as I said many times, Netherlands far exceeded expectations. They can't take anything from this tournament except that they were successful. The fact that they won even one match against the 1st to 9th place ranked teams means, they've done more than they actually should have. And I'm sure their ranking will go up next year.
That's right, John, and by the time we do our next podcast on Monday, the group stage will be done and dusted, so we will have the final standings for that in that podcast. The final placings, and if they're not already, John, those semi-final matchups will be locked in and set in stone.
No, they're not yet because of Australia and South Africa possibly finishing second and third.
I mean, we know they're going to play against each other, but we don't know whether they're going to finish second or third, and we don't yet 100% know that New Zealand are going to be fourth.
Yeah.
I think we're 99.9% sure it will be New Zealand, but we're not 100% sure.
And the first semi-final is Wednesday, so we'll do a comprehensive review of Wednesday, Thursday on Monday, and then Thursday is perfect because we'll be able to do there's no third place match. Okay.
No, it's just straight. You're straight. And I don't mind that, John. I mean, the third place
It's a World Cup, man. No one cares.
Yeah, it's a who cares.
That's fully like a nobody cares.
Yeah, it's a who cares event, isn't it, John?
So just the standings, I think everybody knows, is India, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, Pakistan, Afghanistan, England, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Netherlands. Any cricket news? I think we covered all the news.
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered it, haven't we, John?
But there's always rugby league news.
Yeah.
It just never stops. I don't know what's going on over at the Bulldogs, man. Well, I already thought they had signed. So, Bulldogs announced signing 4 new players: Kurt Mann, Jake Turpin, Drew Hutchison, and Poasa Farmasili. I don't know.
Farmasili.
Yeah. I thought they'd already signed Kurt Mann.
So would I, John. So had I. John, again, you know, none of those 4 really jump out at you, do they? I mean, you know, these guys will do a job, but they'll add a bit of depth. But, you know, in terms of the overall picture, it's not going to change much.
No, I don't know what's going on over there, but apparently they're looking at big money offers to Jerome Luai.
Well, that's the big fish they want.
And there was... there's also, we'll stick with the Bulldogs, Raymond Fatala Mariner has been told to stay away from preseason training. I think you can clearly say that he was like, you know, we all know that he went and spoke to Cameron Serrato about how it's all too hard for all the Polynesian boys or whatever, and there was 8 Polynesians that had a text message scandal. I would say that, you know, basically you can definitely say that he was at the centre of it, allegedly. You can conjecture that he was, or a major instigator of it, or a big part of it. He's out. He'll go. There's nothing. They don't want him there. If he wants to stick around and force his paycheck, more power to him or whatever, but they're not going to play him.
Yeah, he's got 2 years left on his deal, John, which is worth a reported $400,000 a year. He's the club captain. I mean, they're obviously clearing the decks, John, trying to, I guess, bring in a new culture and getting rid of the players who they don't feel like are buying into that culture. But yeah, John, I'm waiting to see some evidence that the coach Cameron Serrato and the general manager Phil Gould are actually earning their money and actually that there's a lot going on, but we're not seeing enough wins from the club. We're not seeing them travel north on the ladder. A lot of talk about culture, a lot of talk going on, John, and not much action. You look at those 4 players they've signed, nobody jumps out at you off the page, John. I'm going to go through their gains next year, John. You can tell me if anyone jumps out at you off the page. Stephen Crichton from Penrith, he does. Bronson Cherry, back from a drugs ban. We haven't seen much of him. Doesn't jump out at me, John. Blake Taff from the Rabbitohs doesn't jump out at me. Jamin Salmon from the Panthers. Same thing. Josh Curran from the Warriors. Kurt Mann, as we've talked about. Drew Hutchison, we've talked about. Jake Turpin and our friend Falmasili.
Yeah.
John, only one player jumps out at you off the page, Stephen Crichton. So next year, not much is going to change, and the coach and general manager have to take some responsibility for that.
I talked a lot about Ben Hunt being the domino that's going to start the falls, but now I think it's Jerome Luai. It's definitely changed to Jerome Luai. A lot of clubs are chasing Jerome Luai, who again is an off contract next year. He's off contract, well, not off contract this year. He's off contract the next year. And there's a bit of snark going on between Jerome Luai and even Ivan Cleary. Like Ivan Cleary did a quote that was like, he basically saying that Jerome Luai has never really tested himself or something, and Jerome Luai has done an Instagram tweet, just test me or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but to me it wasn't newsworthy. But from what I understand, a lot of clubs are chasing Jerome Luai in a release situation from Penrith. And the Bulldogs are one of them.
Okay, John, I've got 2 questions for you. First question, as things stand now, in your opinion, where do the Bulldogs finish next year? They were 15th this year.
Based on this exact point right now.
Right now.
Around the same.
Right. And so if they were to sign Jerome Luai tomorrow, where do they finish next year?
Start next year?
Yeah.
I'd say just outside the 8.
Right, okay.
Because, and that's the problem is actually across the board, if you look at all the gains and losses of all the clubs, I said last week there's been a lot of re-signings, there's been a lot of movement and stuff, but actually there hasn't been that much movement because there's 3 players that the entire league is hinging on to cause all the rest.
Yeah.
It's Jerome Luai, who is most likely going to sign with a different club. I don't think he's going to stay at Panthers now because they aren't willing to go above 850. They're happy with Jack Cogger to take over, who also complements Nathan Cleary, and other clubs are going to offer Jerome Luai 1.1 million minimum, up to 1.3 possibly. So he will definitely go. Then there's Ben Hunt, who everybody is waiting to see what happens there, and Joey Manu. So Joey Manu, the Dragons have apparently upped their offer. It's 5 point. It was when I mentioned last time it was 5.2 actually, and it's around 5.4 now. And he's also been told, basically, Flanagan's also basically said they're going to build an entire team around him and whatever he wants. If he wants to play fullback, if he wants to be the captain. This is actual, like he said, there's a soundbite of it. Like if he wants to be captain, he can be captain. If he wants to play, wherever he wants to play, he can play. They're going to build a team around Joey Manu. And you would have to think that the signature of Joey Manu would immediately trigger the release of Ben Hunt. Okay, they're not going to have 2 $1 million players on their books. They're also looking to sign... Who's the Warriors guy that wants to... Aiden Fanua-Blake. They're also looking to sign him. They've upped their offer to $3 million, believe over 4 years. $3 million over 4 years. They're not going to have $1.1 million Ben Hunt, $1.1 million Joey Manu, and $800,000 Aiden Fanua-Blake. They're going to release Ben Hunt. And those 3 things are going to hinge on what actually happens with the Bulldogs as well. Because if they Dragons get Joey Manu, they're going to not chase Luai, which puts one team out of Luai. I believe it's Bulldogs and one other team chasing Luai. I can't remember. I think it might have been the Tigers or something like that. I just remember looking at it going, well, he's not going to go there. He was going to want to go to Stephen Crichton, Cameron Serraldo's team. Follow Stephen Crichton. Now, I don't like it, though, because I don't like the Bulldogs buying so many Panthers players.
Yeah. So, John, what's your gut feel here? What do you think Luai is going to do here?
I think Luai's going to go to the Bulldogs. Right, I think he might get that release.
Okay. Because you've got a few sources.
Yeah, there, I was talking to them, and I'm reiterating their opinion, and they've convinced me, but I have no facts.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So, what I believe is going to happen based on a few conversations I've had over the last few days, and again, it's reiterating opinions. None of this is fact. Is Jerome Luai is going to get his release. He's gonna go to the Bulldogs, and that will change the Bulldogs' fortunes completely.
Yeah, and you mentioned it before, John. That tension between Luai and Cleary seems evident now. So you are really starting to feel now like Luai won't be at Penrith.
Yep, I think Penrith's going to let him go, and they're not going to have to pay any salary either.
Okay, so do you think it'll be an immediate release? So it'll be there in 2024 at the Bulldogs.
So. Yeah,
very interesting.
And that'll trigger the thing, because then Dragons will sign Joey Manu. And either they'll try and get a release or whatever they can, because again, Joey Manu is 2025, not 2024. And what happens with Ben Hunt will be based on whether Joey Manu can come next year or not. They'll convince Ben Hunt to stay around for 1 year till Joey Manu arrives. Fanua-Blake, if he's, if the Jerome Luai situation resolves, this will be the trigger. The domino that breaks everything. If Warriors are then able to find a prop to replace Fanua-Blake, Fanua-Blake will get an immediate release and come to the Dragons. My understanding is only the Dragons have actually tabled a serious offer. And it's $3 million from whenever he wants to start, whether it's next year or the year after. Now, again, I talked about Shane Flanagan last week, talking about we're going to make the finals next year. The problem is all of the players they're chasing are 2025. So if you're going to make the finals next year, it's going to be with the squad you have.
So he's set the expectations too high, hasn't he, John? It's interesting that the Ben Hunt situation, we have talked about it a few times on this podcast, John. I think, for me, Ben Hunt is a player who would fit in well with a team that's already in the 8, who are looking for that bit extra. But those clubs, you'd have to think most of them wouldn't have the cap space to fit him in at this point, unless they do some other rearranging of the deck chairs and let some other players go. So then you go, well, it's only the bottom clubs who are really looking out for him. But then you look at how he's gone at the Dragons, John. He's not the guy, I've said it a few times, he's not the guy to get you from the bottom 4 into the top 8, top 4, challenging for a premiership, because he's not doing that at the team he's at the moment. The Dragons, they're second last on the ladder.
He's
So it's a buyer beware, John. It's buyer beware.
The other thing about that, exactly what you're saying is correct, right? The other thing about it is he's on a compassionate grounds release. He's seeking compassionate grounds to return to Queensland. There's only one top 8 Queensland squad, the Broncos. You think the Broncos are going to buy him, then replace Adam Reynolds?
That's the thing. If the Broncos were going to buy him, you know,
where's he going to play?
Where's he going to play? And they're not going to spend $1 million on him. No. It's just not going to happen, John.
So there is the Dolphins and Titans. Like, it's apparently Titans. Titans are firmed. Dolphins aren't going to take him. I think actually Ben Hunt has an issue with Wayne Bennett. So he was never seriously considering the Dolphins. But he's going to. It'll be only the Titans. I don't think the Titans are going to make the 8 with Ben Hunt there. Is he a premiership winner? No. He's an Origin winner.
Ben Hunt. Well, we know what happened in that 2015 grand final. John,
he's an Origin winner, and he's an Australian. I believe he was in the World Cup squad anyway. But yeah, senior player. But again, individually brilliant. Never really done anything. With a massively amazing team around Ben Hunt, where Ben Hunt is not required to lead a team, run a team, be the main, have the team built around him.
He's probably better. He's better at hooker, John.
I always thought that.
Yeah.
I always thought that. I don't think he wants to play hooker.
But that's if you're a club in the top 8, you'd be looking at him as a hooker and hopefully not wanting to pay that much money.
But none of them can take him because it's only the Broncos who can take him.
Exactly.
So who's the Broncos
this is the dilemma. He can only go to the bottom clubs, but if he goes to the bottom clubs, he'll be on $1 million+ a year, and he won't be able to deliver them what they want, which is, as I say, top 8, top 4 challenge for a premiership. But the clubs where he'd fit in well, those top 8 clubs just trying to give him a bit extra, well, they're not going to be able to fit him in for the money he wants.
So if he's going to go to a top 8 team, which can only be the Broncos in Queensland, he's going to be replacing Billy Walters at hooker, which to my mind is not a good replacement. He's going to clash with Adam Reynolds' play style. He's going to clash with
It's not because I'm guessing Billy Walters isn't going to be on that much money, and so to buy Ben Hunt in, you've got to spend this huge amount of money on him. It's not just about who you buy; it's about what you have to pay for them as well.
Yeah.
Are you getting value for money out of this player? Are they taking up too much of your salary cap? Would they be taking up too much of your salary cap if you're going to sign them? These are the things you have to think about, John. And a club like the Broncos, he just doesn't fit at the moment. You're better off sticking with Billy Walters on a much lower salary. It just wouldn't make salary cap sense for the Broncos to go after Ben Hunt, John.
He's actually not a bad buy for the Titans at hooker, on a reduced salary, obviously. But yeah, he's not going to take him to the finals at all. So it's Jerome Luai is now our domino, our thing.
Yeah, Jerome Luai is
and I think that's why you're seeing Bulldogs,
the big signing.
Like Bulldogs not announcing any major signings because they're waiting for the Jerome Luai situation to resolve. You're not seeing the Dragons announce major signings because they're waiting for the Ben Hunt situation to resolve.
Yeah, I think it's obvious that the Bulldogs have to go hard for Luai here, John.
Absolutely. And then the rest of the teams in the competition, I think, are waiting for those two situations to resolve to see what they can get. Because Ben Hunt wants out of the Dragons completely, but nobody in Queensland can buy him. The Dragons should go to him, you know what, you're out then. Go find a Sydney team. Go play for the Raiders. Ben Hunt would do well at the Knights as well. That's another place he could go.
Tell you what, John, if I was your Dragons right now, I'm getting Ben Hunt in for a meeting today and saying, do you want to go? There's the door. You want a release right now? We'll give it to you. we're not paying you any more money because it's your choice to go. But you want the release, you take it, mate.
Yeah, but I think there's nobody to sign.
That's the thing. There's no. Yeah, that's
and
the thing.
They're still in the race for that Jerome Luai. So it's kind of thing where they have like 2 offers out for players to build teams around. Jerome Luai and Joey Manu. Whichever one comes first or doesn't come will decide what happens with Ben Hunt, which will then decide what happens with everyone else in the league. Now, normally you would have, it's the 10th of November. It's been 10 days. Normally with 160 players off contract, all we've seen so far is a couple of really minor signings across the board, across all teams, and a bunch of like low-level extensions. We haven't seen any major player movement. And things like the Aiden Fanua-Blake, Joey Manu, Jerome Luai, Ben Hunt is holding everyone up. I really believe it.
That's supposedly letting Tavita Pangai Jr. go, John, who was on $750,000. It's sort of the picture's becoming clearer what they want to do with that money, John.
Yeah, they're going to get
that money's not being taken up by Kurt Mann and Jake Turpin.
It's going to be probably 1.3 million offer to Jerome Luai. And like I said, he can stay at the Panthers for $850 when there's a little bit of RG. I mean, look, they could be putting on a show.
They'd never do that.
I think Cleary in his mind games never.
No.
There's a little bit of argy-bargy between the two. He's going to go make, you can go $850 a year or 1.3 a year, and that's a $450,000 per year difference. He'd be mad to stay, actually. Like I've said before.
450, you said.
Yeah, 450.
Yeah. What are you going to do? What's anybody going to do?
If I was Jerome Luai, I would stay. But it's easy for me to say, man. That's more like that. Me saying that if I was Jerome Luai, I'd stay at Penrith, right? It's like when people say, if I won the lottery, I wouldn't work. Mate, bullcrap. Yeah. The first day your boss came in and asked you to do something, you'd be like, you know what, I quit. I'm done.
Yeah.
And that's him. Like, he's not going to miss out on 400. He's already won 3 premierships. What the hell does he need another one for? Like.
And that's the thing. I mean, you could argue that he should stay maybe if he was, if everything was, fairy floss and singing songs, holding hands under a rainbow, John. But it doesn't look like that's happening at Penrith now. There's tension emerging with him and Cleary, and you sort of think that's the precursor for a move here, John.
So with the Dragons and Aiden Fanua-Blake, the other thing about that is, what I really worry there is the Dragons aren't historically going well, right? He's going from the Warriors, who are a rising team, and the Dragons are going to come in. I'm going to be realistic and say the Dragons are going to finish somewhere between 10th and 15th next year. And if he doesn't like it, he's going to walk out on compassionate grounds. Because remember, the Dragons train at Wollongong and at Cogra, and these guys are pretty funny, these footballers, man. I remember there was the thing with, I think it was, Luke Lewis, who didn't want to move from Penrith to South Sydney Rabbitohs because it was too far from his family. It's the same city.
Well, I mean, I guess the issue for Fanua-Blake, isn't it, John, is that, because these players are so well known publicly and their histories are well known and you know everything about them, you can't exactly lie on your resume as a high-profile NRL player, can you? Everyone knows everything about you.
Why'd you leave your last job?
In other walks, this is another disadvantage of being high-profile, is that in other walks of life, you could get away with a bit of chocolate fudge on your resume here or there. Aiden Fanua-Blake can't do it, John. Everyone knows his history. Everyone knows why he left the last clubs. And, as you said before... buyer beware. The Dragons need to be careful.
And remember, there's a lot of teams that are can make this year we had Rabbitohs, Eels, Cowboys who could have made the 8 up until almost the last round. Sea Eagles that had that draw that put them in the out of contention a little bit earlier, but like we've said before, they weirdly missed the 8. So there's a lot of teams that are jockeying for that top 8 spot. And, the Knights, who just beat a bunch of nuffies to get into the 8, did their amazing 10 win streak or whatever it was. Raiders, who, if the season had been 1 week longer, the Raiders wouldn't have been there. I don't see the Dragons getting into the 8 and having an Aiden Fanua-Blake going, I don't know about that now.
Yeah.
Yes, because his family, I believe, live near Manly or something, I read. So he might be like, now I'm going to go to Manly. Compassionate grounds. Wollongong's too far from Manly or something, So,
he's played that Compassionate Grounds card a lot, hasn't he, John?
Twice now.
Yeah,
Wants to leave Manly and wants to leave the Warriors.
Yeah.
I don't know what compassion there was about them leaving Manly, but yeah. So the Australia fallout continues.
Yes, John. A tweet from Phil Gould on the Kangaroos. Not going to read the full tweet. I'll just read the interesting bits out. He says, it looked like Australia learned nothing from their win the week before. Lazy performance would reflect a lazy and complacent preparation, maybe even a complacent selection process. Australia produced an embarrassing performance. Someone has to put their hand up and take some responsibility. I mean, he's right, John. I agree 100% with him, and I'm sure you do too.
Absolutely.
But, there'd be people looking at that going, Gus, how's your NRL team been going? And you know what I mean, John? Like, there's people going, don't throw stones from a glass house, Gus. I mean,
Yeah.
You get where I'm coming from?
Yeah, 100%. And the thing, that's one of the things that really grab people, grate the wrong. Phil Gould actually grates people the wrong way because he has media, Bulldogs, other roles, commentator, blah blah, and so he can basically say anything, and then he can also pull out the excuse, but I'm talking as from a media personality, not from my Bulldogs thing.
Yeah.
He's 100% right, and if the tweet was from Sonny Bill Williams about the Bulldogs, it would also be right.
Yeah, it's true, right? But there is part of you that can't help but go, and there'd be people in and around the Australia setup. Obviously, they've got to take accountability for what happened last weekend, John.
I haven't seen any of them do it.
It was just a complete farce.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of them.
Their performance was just terrible. But there'd be people looking at that going, oh, yeah, so you're the guy who's presided over a team that had a terrible NRL season, finished third last, had, as we said, I think the worst defensive record in the league, the worst points differential for the season, the second worst attack for the season, only better than the West Tigers. He's presided over a team having that sort of a season, and now he comes out and slings mud at Australia at the first opportunity. You can't help but look at it through that lens, John.
That's the problem, right?
You can't help it.
And, if anybody else had said it, like anybody else in the entire world, Australia, Ricky Stewart had said it. Honestly, if anybody had said it, any former player, any former coach, any media personality, it'll be a different thing. But unfortunately, there's the hypocrisy of man that happens, bro. Like you got to be careful about what you say, which if it can be turned back against you. And he's 100% right. I haven't seen any Australian coach, player, anything come out and publicly front up and just go, "Oh yeah, we screwed up really badly here." What
haven't heard a peep out of any of them, John.
I've heard one quiet. One thing only. Mal Meninga's apparently getting a new deal.
Oh.
It'll take him through to the World Cup in 2026. That's all I've heard.
On what basis could that happen, given what we saw last
he's got
weekend?
an 88% win rate and he's only lost 3 games in his entire tenure of the game, blah, 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 blah.
He does, but as we've talked about, you should have that winning percentage given the players at your disposal.
To be honest, I think 88% is pretty low.
With the players he's got at his disposal, as I said in our last podcast, John, if you're the Australian Rugby League coach, you can't lose a tournament, John. You can't finish second in any tournament. You have to win every tournament. And the moment you lose a tournament as Australian Rugby League coach, you're gone. The fact that he's getting an extension here, it seems, John, is just perplexing to me.
It is. It's bizarre. Ricky Stewart got sacked after losing the 2008 World Cup final. His win percentage was 91%.
Yes.
You know how many games he lost? 1.
That 2008 World Cup final.
Exactly.
Well, that's a case in point, John.
He got sacked.
Yeah, and we do give it to Ricky a lot on this podcast, but we have to point out, John, how's that? That's not fair to him.
No.
He was let go after 1 defeat. Mal Meninga's had a defeat.
He's had 3.
So 3 defeats. And, had one in a tournament final like Ricky Stewart did. Meninga should be suffering the same fate that Ricky Stewart did back then.
And they'll use all those things. 88% win rate. He's only lost 3 games. It wasn't a World Cup. It was only a minor tournament. It was whatever long string of excuses you can come up with, they can use. But it's just all of that is just deflection.
Yeah, that's garbage. Every tournament is important. All right, the Pacific Championships is not the World Cup.
That's because it wasn't important to anybody because nobody watched it.
It's still a tournament. It was the International Rugby League tournament at the end of the season. And Australia didn't win it, and the coach has got to go in that situation.
There's only one person to fire, actually. The players can be dropped. Like, obviously, James Tedesco is not going to get picked next year, even though he's the captain, because there are better players to pick for Australia. Probably shouldn't have been, well, in the end, definitely shouldn't have been picked, but probably shouldn't have been picked. They tried to justify selection with 2 wins, or what it was 2 wins, and then the losses. Like, James Tedesco didn't look good, apparently. I still haven't watched it. I just don't care. It's not the kind of thing...
Flat as attack, John. He looked flat as attack, and they left out Reece Walsh and Kalen Ponga. Reece Walsh took his team to the grand final, nearly won it. Kalen Ponga won the Dally M medal this year, and single-handedly took his team into the finals and on a charge.
This is not the kind of thing where I'm not watching the game because it's like the 1999 grand final that I never, ever, ever want to see again in my life.
Yes.
Ever. It's like blanked from my memory because it's just horrifying.
Oh, yeah, I can understand, yes.
It's the kind of thing where I don't want to watch it because I simply don't care.
Mm.
The tournament was boring. The tournament was stupid.
Yeah.
It spoke through in crowd attendances, TVs, ratings, stuff like that.
Yeah.
The only thing I care about is the fact that Australia lost. And the reason I didn't care is because I knew Australia was going to win.
Mm.
You know, like
So your interest has come about because they lost the game.
And I don't need to watch it because I don't care about the game because I know the game was boring.
Yeah. So the thing is, John, you don't have to care about the game, but the Australian coach does.
Yeah.
The Australian players do.
That's exactly what I meant. Like, it's irrelevant that I don't care. It's super relevant that they don't seem to.
No.
And the
nothing.
ARL,
We've heard nothing out of any of them.
Like, absolutely ridiculous. And if Melbourne gets a new deal, it's just
no apology to their supporters for that atrocious performance in that final, John. Nothing. We haven't heard boo out of anyone in the Australian camp.
Absolutely.
Other than the news that the coach is about to be re-signed, if you can believe that.
I can't believe it.
Just because he's an immortal, John, it doesn't mean he's immune from accountability.
Yeah, 100%.
He needs to be treated like any other coach would in this same situation.
So they should put Ricky Stewart back in charge. He's got a better win percentage.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that, John, but what I would say is,
but if
Ricky was sacked after that 2008 World Cup final. The same thing should happen to Meninga.
If you're going to use win percentage, what I mean is if you're going to use win percentage as a justification, he's only lost 3 games, got an 88% win percentage. Ricky Stewart's got 91% win percentage. So therefore he's better. Right, we'll use one stat. Dean Young was the best forward in the 2008.
Well, that just shows how meaningless the Australian coach win percentage is.
Yeah, exactly.
They all have a good win percentage.
Yeah, exactly.
So that means it's not about the coach. It's about the playing talent they have at their disposal. So when you don't win the tournament as the Australian coach, you go.
There's only two jobs. Yeah. Select the right team, get the team pumped to win.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Mm.
Melbourne this time selected the wrong team and didn't get the team pumped to win. Mm. And that is he failed in his 2 jobs. 2 jobs that he contributed to the 1 job being Australian coach. So, he's an immortal. What he did with Queensland Origin is amazing. He's won a bunch of
But again,
stuff.
look at the team he had with Queensland.
Yeah, exactly. But he's won the World Cup and all that.
He picks the best gigs as a coach, doesn't he? He's smart with the coaching gigs he takes on, John.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he's not going to go...
haven't seen him take on a tough coaching gig.
Why doesn't he go coach Samoa? Moving right along to Michael Maguire status update.
Yep.
So it's... I talked last week, my sticking point would be that if I was the New Zealand team, I wouldn't want Michael Maguire, coaching New South Wales. Mm-hmm. Apparently after that win, apparently New Zealand was into this. Like, they didn't want him coaching New South Wales because of that exact issue that I talked about, where he could actually kind of poach players. But after the New Zealand win, they're actually happy. They've given their blessing. Now, the sticking point here is New South Wales has offered a 1-year deal and Michael Maguire wants a 2-year deal.
Well, that's fair enough, John. I think he should be entitled to a 2-year deal.
Yeah, I don't think it should ever be a 1-year deal for a New South Wales coach. What the 1 year... I mean, look, I've talked before, I love Sonny Bill's habit of only taking 1-year contracts because every year is your last year. You know, you have to perform. The problem is New South Wales lost 2 in a row. Giving Michael Maguire 1 year a 1-year deal, but either way, it doesn't matter if you give him 1 year or 2 year, he has to win.
That's the thing. 1 year deal, that says to me, John, straight out, you lose the series, you're gone.
But to be honest, if he loses the series, he should be gone because Australia need to win. I mean, New South Wales need to win.
But given that he's a new coach, wouldn't you give him 2 series before?
Not with two losses. Not in this situation.
Okay.
In a club coach.
Okay. That makes it a tougher decision for him then, John.
New South Wales doesn't want Queensland getting on another roll. Now, what I would want from New South Wales is quality management, the ability of giving Michael Maguire free... I don't care, okay... Contracts mean nothing. They can sign in 1 or 2 years. They shouldn't be sticking on this, to be honest. They shouldn't worry about it. They should just give him whatever contract. It doesn't matter. No one wants the job. Only Michael Maguire wants the job. So you've got to give it to him. But they've got to give him free rein to do whatever he wants. But they've also got to do oversight to make sure he's doing the right things. Now, he did the right thing with New Zealand. It didn't take him very long. He did it in a week.
So if you do think that they'd sack him after 1 series, if he lost and he had a 2-year deal, I mean, to be honest, I'm not so sure that they would. I think they'd probably give him 2. But anyway, even if you think they would only give him 1, at least the 2-year deal gives him a bit of security of having that payout for the second year.
Yeah.
If they give him 1 year, there's not that payout there, John. Look, you'd be inclined to say, John, that if they're only offering him a 1-year deal, he would only want to take the job if he's allowed to do the New Zealand job as well.
Yeah.
If they ask him to leave the New Zealand job to take a 1-year deal, I think that's too much to ask of him, John.
So apparently the Raiders are going to sack him though, as well, and that's the other reason why. To be fair, it should just be 2 years because of that, because he currently has 2 jobs: assistant to the Raiders and New Zealand head coach.
And the assistant to the Raiders, I mean, that's a full-time gig. That's flat out.
If he takes New South Wales, he's got to leave the Raiders, so he's got to lose a job. So they should give him 2 years just out of that to entice him, because no one wants it, man. Like, some other people have pitched for it and stuff like that, but they've been rejected. And so what else are they going to do? But just give him the 2 years. It doesn't matter. But, New South Wales need to win. Because at this point in time, Queensland are not Australia anymore. You know, they're not the team that are expected to win. They're not the team that should. Last year they had a bad team. Again, media, don't ever say this. It just makes them win. The worst Queensland team or whatever idiocy you want to say. New South Wales, in theory, has a better pool of players, and it's just going to come down to 2 things: selections and getting them up for the game. The State of Origin schedule has been announced. Mm-hmm. It's Sydney on June. So the NRL has resisted everybody, players, club coaches, CEOs, fans, pressure to reduce the length of the Origin season to 4 weeks instead of 6. They just resisted it, said no, too bad. So Sydney on June the 5th, MCG on June the 26th, and Suncorp on July 17th. Now, normally, Melbourne is considered like a Queensland home game, but Queensland have lost 4 out of 5 games at the MCG. New South Wales is in prime position to win with the opening match in Sydney, then going to the MCG where Queensland doesn't have a good record, and then having to go to Suncorp. That's why I think if New South Wales doesn't win, that's, we'll just scrap Origin. That's why I think he could lose his job. And that's, 2 years to keep his payout safe is not a bad idea. Like I said, who cares? Just give it to him. Who cares?
John, do they need to play the neutral venue game as the third game? Because you worry that the series could be over before it gets to Suncorp Stadium. I'd be inclined to have the MCG game as game 3 because that way you guarantee a live rubber in Sydney, a live rubber in Brisbane, and all right, if it's a decider in Melbourne, so be it. But at least you've had, because you run the risk of it being 2-0 without a game being played at Suncorp, and Suncorp is the home of State of Origin. I'm not sure about these having one game every year in these neutral venues, John.
I don't...
In Melbourne, they couldn't care less about rugby league down there. And I know it's a great spectacle at the MCG, and if they fill it, they got 100,000 people. I get that, but the reality is, the day after it, people down there couldn't care less.
But they have a lot of growth of rugby league in Melbourne. Remember Melbourne was the 4th highest membership, so they're going to get 40,000 at the MCG, which is going to look empty with its 100,000 space.
Well, I mean, I think it depends whether it's a live or dead rubber. If it's a dead rubber, then you're right. I think it is looking in that may not even be half full territory. If it's a decider, it'll be higher.
I prefer it with third every single time, actually.
Yeah, because then you guarantee live games in Sydney and Brisbane.
I say it every year. And then you have both the Sydney and Brisbane game matter, and then you get to award. But people don't like it, but I actually do. I love it when the opposite team gets awarded the trophy in front of the crowd. I love New South Wales getting awarded the trophy in Queensland, right? But they don't award the trophy till the end of the bloody thing anyway, which is also another thing I don't like. If someone wins first game, second game, just give them the trophy there. No one's hanging around for
I guess maybe one reason why they do it that way, John, is because they hold the presentation at the end of the third game because it sort of adds to the occasion of the third game, which is sort of needed if it's a dead rubber. At least that's something to sort of go, oh, well, at least the presentation will be on after. But I get what you're saying. I tend to agree. Give it as soon as they win it. Yeah. If it's after game 2, give it to them then.
I wish the MCG was the third one. I obviously wouldn't go to Melbourne, but I'll definitely be at that the Sydney one on June the 5th.
Speaking of scheduling, John, I think the expected round 1 schedule for 2024 has, I think, been leaked out.
It has, and the best thing I saw about it is West Tigers
get at least the bye.
Yeah.
So, John, they're on top of the ladder. They're on 2 points. No one else is.
A week. They can't be at the bottom.
For months, they're on 2 points. We know they got the bye in the first round.
But for at least a week, they can't be on the bottom of the ladder. That's the best thing about it.
That's right.
So we do know that the Rabbitohs... Rabbitohs Seagulls.
Rabbitohs Seagulls March 2 in Las Vegas. Yeah. We know that. Broncos v Roosters March 2 in Las Vegas.
We knew that.
The rest of the round. Knights v Raiders. Warriors v Sharks. Storm v Panthers. Eels v Bulldogs, a nice 1980s blockbuster there, John. Titans v Dragons. Could be the Ben Hunt Cup, that one, John.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Dolphins v Cowboys, a Queensland derby there, John. And as we said, Tigers get the bye.
My conspiracy about that Titans v Dragons is the NRL has contacted the Dragons and said, is Ben Hunt going to the Titans? And they've gone, yep. So sweet, we're putting you up against his Titans on the opening round. Speaking of that first round, Peter V'landys was asked about this and refused to give information. They're trying to get a boxing card in Las Vegas, actually, in the lead up to the NRL blockbuster.
Interesting.
So Friday night boxing with Tim Tszyu fighting for a world title fight, and Nikita Tszyu also on the card. So we're going to have a small delay in announcing our competition for Vegas just to see if this can get confirmed because we want to chuck into the package. You go Vegas, Friday night boxing, Saturday night NRL to watch Australian.
That'd be huge, John.
Yeah. So I really hope it does happen. It's in the works. They just got to confirm that his challenger is available for the that date. And then hopefully, world title fight with Tim Tszyu on the Friday, 1st of March. And the NRL doubleheader on the 2nd of March. Sounds awesome. Okay,
absolutely, John.
Is that NRL for the week?
I think so. I think we've covered everything there, John.
And is there any news in the AFL?
I've got one thing, John, that I thought might take your fancy. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you heard about it, John, but the Sydney Swans are not happy because there was a mural planned for Buddy Franklin in Surrey Hills, and it's been scrapped by the City of Sydney. They're not going ahead with it, John. I think they said, this is the quote from the finding. It says, the development has not demonstrated design excellence and is considered to be an advertisement, the finding stated. As such, the development is prohibited. Just interested to get your thoughts on that one.
We're going to build a statue for the Matildas who came fourth in the World Cup. We're going to paint a mural for the Matildas who came fourth in the World Cup. They have to submit the design, though. Okay. So you have to wonder, as part of the tender, like to the application, you submit the design, like basically a paper-based design. You have to wonder what the words on it said. For the City of Sydney to go, dude, that's an ad. Because you're allowed to do these murals that are like, honouring famous people and stuff like that. But if they've come back and said, that's an ad, you really have to wonder, what is that? I want to see the thing. If they want to whine about it, if Swans want to whine about it, they should release the image. And then let the world judge and go, you know what? Because if it's not an ad, and the rest of the world thinks that's not an ad, then everyone will complain on the City of Sydney and get City of Sydney about a pressure. Yeah. If it is an ad, then everyone can go, well, come on, Swans, City of Sydney is right. Yeah. But the fact they haven't released the ad, the artwork says to me, it's an ad. And the entire intention was it was an ad. And it was probably something like, go Swans, and something like that, like, sign up now.
And that's the thing, John. Like, Buddy Franklin kicked 1,066 goals in his career with Hawthorn and the Swans. He is only one of, or him and 5 other players are the only ones to have kicked more than 1,000 goals in the history of the league. The one at the top of that list is Tony Lockett, the former Swan himself. He kicked 1,360 goals in his career, John. Where was his mural? Why didn't he get a mural?
It's because it's an ad. So the Sydney Swans can complain about it all they want, but the fact they don't release the artwork shows it's an ad.
Yeah, it's a good call, John. I mean, I would have loved to have seen Tony Lockett get a mural. Yeah. I love Tony Lockett.
They should. Well, if they really want to get into it, they should reapply and go, actually, we're going to correct it. It's no longer an ad, and here we're also going to add Tony Lockett and some other, like Adam Goods. I
think there might already be a mural of Adam Goods, actually.
So you go look at that Adam Goods thing. That is just a picture of Adam Goods. And it's Adam Goods. But the Buddy Franklin one clearly had words. Some kind of call to action, something like that, to make it an ad. I mean, advertising, man. I do marketing.
That's why I asked you the question, John. I figured it was
a scam.
It was an up-your-alley question.
They tried to slip it through and they failed. So on the weekend, on Sunday, we have UFC 295, which was previously going to be the card of the year with John Jones versus greatest heavy. So arguably the greatest UFC fighter of all the time, even though he's a drug cheat, John Jones versus the definite greatest UFC heavyweight of all time, Stipe Miocic. Unfortunately, John Jones got injured, and we're going to see Jiri Prochazka versus Alex Pereira light heavyweight title instead. You got to go on the internet. Everybody should go on the internet and check these two guys out, man, because they are like, both of them were born out of their time, Alex Pereira should have been in the, I don't know what, he's Brazilian. I don't know what the Brazilian thing is, like the Aztecs or Mayans or whatever. He should have been in this time. He loves archery and
the Mayans.
And Jiri Prochazka, who's from the Czech Republic, he is like an old school, like, I don't know what the Eastern European historical warrior race was. This is the kind of guy that jumps off cliffs with 2 axes into freezing cold water. So Jiri was actually the light heavyweight champion, and he hasn't fought, I think, in 2 years, because he injured himself and dropped his title. So he only fought 3 times in the UFC, and the third was for the title. And it was one of the fights of the ages against Glover Teixeira. He's on a 13-fight win streak overall with 12 finishes, though. The only fight he didn't finish was with Glover. I think he might have actually finished Glover. But anyway, so to win the heavyweight title. So we've been waiting for him to come back for 2 years. Whereas Alex Pereira, he fights every November in Madison Square Garden. 2 years ago, it was his debut against Andreas Michailidis at UFC 268, which he won. Last year, he followed it up by winning the middleweight title of arguably the greatest middleweight of all time, Israel Adesanya. Excuse me, producer John with his phone on. Rude much? So this is two absolute warriors who are going to go at it. It is going to be so good. It's unfortunate that we didn't get to see Stipe versus John Jones, but this is the fight of the
So
century.
you're going to watch it, John?
100%.
Yeah.
I'll be watching.
You're all in?
Yeah. The co-main event is that Sergey Pavlovich versus Tom Aspinall.
Yep.
Sergey has 6 victories, 6 first-round finishes. 4 of these...
That's not bad, John. That's a pretty good record.
4 of them have come in a 13-month span, March 2022 to April 2023. The guy is a monster. I believe he fought... It was when he fought Tai Tuivasa, the Australian guy that does shoeies. He said... Once Sergey hit him once, he knew he was fucked.
Tell you what, John, I wouldn't want to run into him in a dark alley.
Yeah, he's a scary Russian murderer that seems to have been genetically created. But Tom Aspinall, British, he won. He fought in July and won. It was a first round trouncing of Marcin Tybura. That was his first appearance in suffering a knee injury 1 year ago. He's only ever been out of the first round in one of his 6 UFC appearances. So this fight is only going to last 1 round, all right? There's no way these guys are going... They're both excitement machines, big heavyweights, big punchers. Tom Aspinall's also a great grappler, as is Sergey Pavlovich is a great wrestler. You want to see fire? Watch this.
Tell you what, John, you wouldn't want to be blink and you miss it. You wouldn't want to get up and go to the bathroom and at the start of this fight. You may not see any of it.
No, it'll last just a quick elite bet odds check. Bet with your head not over it for free and confidential support. Gambling helpline. At the moment, Tom Aspinall is paying $1.81 with Sergey Pavlovich, spelt wrong on elite bet, guys, paying $1.99. It's very even. Now, method of victory, I love this, right? Sergey Pavlovich by KO, $2.20. Tom Aspinall by KO, $2.65. They're going to KO. Speaking of which, actually, Alex Pereira is the favourite to beat Jiri. $1.78 to $2.04. Both of these fights are almost impossible to call. The other major match on the thing is Mackenzie Dern. Now, you want to know who Mackenzie Dern is? She's considered one of the most beautiful UFC fighters. So go to YouTube and search for the evolution of Mackenzie Dern's accent, because her father is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion, and she is also a 6 times world champion, ADCC winner.
Sounds impressive.
Yeah, she is. She's legit. But she started with a southern accent, like the Texan kind of accent. Moved to Brazil, and her accent fully changed.
Trump country accent.
It was so funny. It's so funny to watch the evolution. So she's plateaued a little. She's gone 2 for 2 over the last 4 outings, but she did come back from having a baby, and I reckon I thought at the time she came back too early because she looked really bad in the return. If this goes to the ground, she's definitely going to win if it becomes a grappling match. She's been working on her striking. If she can get it to the ground, it's done. Whereas Jessica Andrade, her opponent, previous title challenger, she held a title for a short period. This is her 5th appearance this year. She's crazy, man.
That's a lot of fights in less than a year, John.
It's crazy. She's crazy. She's lost her last 3. She started the year with dominant performances against Lauren Murphy, previous title challenger.
What's usually the maximum number 2 of fights in a calendar
every
year?
6 months.
2.
Yeah.
And she's had 5.
Yeah, it's crazy. She's nuts. Just walks forward, kind of will walk into punches and take them, and then just hit back hard. She's got massive arms. She's got that full, huge, fighter butt. That's she's a bulldog. She's like a pit bull that just keep walking forward and she'll tear your throat out. But she's actually been stopped the last 3 fights. So Aaron Blanchfield, who's going to fight for the title next, Jan Jonan and Tatiana Suarez. Tatiana Suarez just got released under strange circumstances as well. She needs to win this. Jessica Andrade needs to win this. But Mackenzie Dern wants to win this because that'll put her in the shot for the next title. Those 3 fights are the ones to watch. There's also Pat Sabatini and Diego Lopez, which is interesting. But all of the fights on this card are pretty close odds, so they're really hard to call. I'm not going to give tips because you don't know. Like Tom Aspinall could touch Sergey Pavlovich and fight over in 10 seconds. Could go the other way. Alex Pereira, you watch his knockout of the current world champion Sean Strickland, and it's the slowest left hook you will ever see in your life. It looks like he just boops him like he's having fun, and he KOs Strickland. Like, Strickland looks dead. That's the power. And Jiri is, what was it? 12 finishes from 13 fights. Jessica Andrade will kill people, whereas Mackenzie Dern will submit people. There's a Mackenzie Dern fight where she cycles the way through arm bars, which I use as an example when I'm teaching students arm bars. I say, go and watch Mackenzie Dern because in jiu-jitsu, people think there's just a standard armbar, but she cycles through all these defenses, goes through like 6 different specific armbars to finish the match by an armbar. And like the technique and technical things she shows in jiu-jitsu is what makes jiu-jitsu beautiful. Whereas Jessica Andrade is just it's straight up killer who will walk forward into punches and hit you back hard. All the women who fight Jessica Andrade say she's the hardest hitter that they've had except for Weili Zhang, who's the current world champion, who can pick up Francis Ngannou. So these are 155 pounds, and she can pick up Francis Ngannou's 275 pounds. 275 walking around. So, yeah, this is going to be a great card. Still a great card. It's just disappointing we don't get to see John Jones versus Stipe. Because if you had added John Jones versus Stipe into this card, it's the greatest and best card of all time.
Yeah, that's a huge call, John.
It's better than Conor McGregor cards, because Conor McGregor cards are like, we've discussed before, he gets to decide who's going to be on his fight cards.
Better than McGregor-Mayweather, John?
Yeah, for sure. Well, McGregor-Mayweather was one good fight. That's the problem with McGregor cards. It's always one good fight you want to watch, and the rest are like...
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want anyone taking away from it.
The card as a whole, it's not just the one
This is the best card. Yeah, so that's Combat Sports. As I said as well, hopefully that Tim Tszyu World Championship fight goes ahead in March. We've got some tennis.
Yes, John. Novak Djokovic took out the Paris Masters. No surprise, John. He just continues to fly high, doesn't he? A record extending 7th title at the Paris Masters, John. He won 3 consecutive 3-setters to make that championship match against Grigor Dimitrov, which he won in straight sets, John. So he's now a 40-time Masters 1000 champion. Just staggering numbers here, John. He's now won 18 consecutive matches and is at 51 wins, 5 losses this season, John. Just extraordinary. That's his 97th tour level title. He's now, obviously we're going to get to that in a moment, John. He's going into the ATP finals now. He's a 6-time champion. He's tied with Roger Federer for most trophies in that tournament, John. So Djokovic with an opportunity here to go ahead of Federer yet again in the ATP finals title wins, going for his 7th title in that, John.
Alcaraz is in that.
Yeah, I've got the players who are in it here, John. Qualifying players: Djokovic, Alcaraz, Medvedev, Yannick Sinner, Andrei Rublev, Stefanos Tsitsipas, Alexander Zverev, and Holger Rune, John. Yeah. Sorry, were you going to ask me something?
No. I think who can beat Djokovic in that? I think it's only look at the odds for the opening match: Novak Djokovic versus Holger Rune. $1.19 for Novak, $4.60. All the other matches are a lot closer. Like Alcaraz is paying $1.43 to Zverev's $2.80, Medvedev $1.52 to $2.52 for Rublev, and Sinner $1.45 to Tsitsipas $2.74. This is $1.19 to $4.60. You can't see anyone except Djokovic winning.
Yeah, you can't really. John, just the form that he's in, you can't go past him. I know Federer and Djokovic have both won it 6 times each, John, but sometimes at this event you do get the odd upset just because the season's so long and some players just can't get up for it after 4 gruelling majors. A lot of players are just waiting for that little off-season break that tennis players get. Obviously, it's not a very long off-season that they have, John. So, yeah, sometimes you do get some players not being able to get up for this event, and you do get the odd upset here or there, but very hard to go past Djokovic here, John.
Yeah.
Maybe Alcaraz, but yeah, I'm favouring Djokovic here, John.
Outright odds again brought to you by Elite Bet, our preferred betting partner for the month of November. Novak Djokovic is paying $2.20 to win. That's basically unbackable. Carlos Alcaraz, second favourite at $5.
Yeah, well, that sums it up, John. It's hard to argue with those odds.
So Nick Kyrgios is going to be commentating this, though.
Yes.
There's billboards about this. I was driving to the office today and I saw billboards about it. Wow. Oh my God, it's going to be... It's worth watching just for that. You don't know what's going to happen.
So it's for the Tennis Channel?
Yeah.
That he's commentating?
Yeah, that's right.
So you'd have to think from their point of view, it's a smart idea, isn't it? The publicity the Tennis Channel's got just by making this decision, publicity for their coverage of the event will be huge.
I wasn't going to watch the ATP World Tour final, but now I'm really interested in watching it.
And there'd be a lot of people in that boat, John.
I got some funny thing that I read about in the article I read about Nick Kyrgios is going to be commentating this. One of the reasons he was out this year is because he cut his foot while chasing a man who allegedly threatened his mother with a gun and stole his Tesla. If that's not the weirdest story to come out of tennis, I don't know what is. But, man, just one thing, Nick. You know, Teslas can be tracked.
Yeah. John, that's even weirder than Glenn Maxwell falling off the golf cart.
If you own a Tesla and someone steals it, it doesn't matter. Only idiots steal Teslas. There's a thing now where it's like, it's a stupid crime to steal a phone. Because 100% of phones can be tracked. Yeah. Even if you turn off
Phones never get stolen now, do they?
No, they don't. No. Because even if you turn off Find My iPhone, Apple can actually still track it. Same with Google. There are other things. Like, if you want to know where your phone is and you have Google Maps on your phone, you can actually check on Google where your phone is. You know, so people don't steal phones anymore. They know they're going to get caught. It's the same as Teslas. If someone is stupid enough to steal a Tesla, just call the police and say, this guy stole my Tesla. It is currently at 123 Fake Street, Springfield. You know? And the police will go pick it up for you, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand he threatened your mum with a gun and all that kind of stuff, but come on.
There's never a dull moment with Nick Kyrgios.
That's why it's going to be great to hear him commentating. Yeah, well, Djokovic will win that for sure. And then he's probably going to go on and win the Australian Open. Alcaraz is the best chance of beating him, but Alcaraz, I think, is coming up, not to the point now of Djokovic. Yes, he was first in the world and he has beat Djokovic before. Has he?
Oh, Alcaraz won the Wimbledon final against Djokovic. Yeah, that was the only major Djokovic didn't win this year. Won the other three. Just got pipped by Alcaraz in that five-set Wimbledon final.
We know it is possible for Alcaraz to beat Djokovic, but I just don't see it happening in the World Tour finals, especially when Djokovic is is for a record.
And it's the form Djokovic is in at the moment too. John Alcaraz got him in that Wimbledon final, but the Djokovic coming off that Paris Masters victory, won the US Open as well. He's primed to take out this event.
I feel like when Djokovic has a chance to get a record that he holds himself, he goes to that extra level as well. That calendar year incentive. That calendar year Grand Slam, it's clearly almost impossible to win. But him winning that doesn't stand him alone. The only way to stand alone at that calendar year Grand Slam is to win two, right? And that's why I don't think he ever gets to that extra, I'm about to break a record level. But in this, if you just said he's going to actually get a standalone record, it's going to be the 7th. He's now going to beat Roger Federer. That gives him an extra, dollar on the odds.
Yeah, he's been so close a couple of times to getting that calendar year Grand Slam, John. 2021, he'd won the first three of the year, and then Daniil Medvedev beat him in the US Open final that year. This year, very similar. Won the Australian, the French, and the US. It's just Alcaraz beating him in that Wimbledon final that stopped him from winning that calendar year Grand Slam.
You might see something like when he's 40 and he'll be the first 40-year-old to win a calendar year Grand Slam. That's when he does it. Because it just seems like that. Like, all right, this is going to be your record now for the most Grand Slams. Okay. Then he demolishes whoever's been on red hot form.
It's actually, if someone was to win the 4 in the 1 year, which Rod Laver did twice, I believe, It's actually just called winning the Grand Slam. But I say calendar year just because it's confusing sometimes, because every one of the majors is called a Grand Slam event. So just to clear up any confusion, I call it a calendar year Grand Slam.
And so that's what I mean. Like, he'd have to win 3 if Rod Raver won it twice. And if he ever got to the point where he had those 2 and then he was coming to the third one, you would not want to be the guy who's like in the last one. You know, he would win those first 3, and you don't want to be the guy who's facing him in the last.
Although Medvedev did, under those circumstances, Djokovic winning the first 3 in 2021, and Medvedev beat him in that US Open final. So
but what I mean is like he wasn't going to be a standalone record. He wasn't actually breaking any records by doing that. He was just joining another.
You're right. Yeah.
So if he was to win 2. And then come up with a third one. Wimbledon.
You're right.
You wouldn't want to be Medvedev in that circumstance, because Djokovic just seems to go like I don't know. Does his team tell him, this specific match gives you another record? And he goes out and goes, well, here's the record.
It's just that the one that stood out for me, John, sorry to harp on it, was just that the 2019 Wimbledon final when Federer was up 8-7 in the 5th and 40-15 on Federer's serve. For Djokovic to turn that around and win that from that position was just staggering, John.
Yeah, 100%.
Staggering. Anyway.
Other sports news.
Yes, I've got a couple of little items, but
I got a Japanese one. Eddie Jones one. Yep. Same thing, Japanese. So Eddie Jones has confirmed that he would definitely be, that's a direct quote, definitely be interested in the Japan job. Thanks, Captain Obvious.
Thanks, Scoop. Yeah.
The interesting thing about it is Hamish McLennan, quality CEO, that one, declared he would be bitterly disappointed if the links between Jones and Japan, as were widely reported, proved to exist.
He's just trying to put himself at arm's length.
Go to Google and search for news about Hamish McLennan and Eddie Jones in Japan, and you will find at the beginning of the World Cup, Hamish McLennan confirmed that he knew Eddie Jones.
Yeah.
Had met with Japan, and now he's saying he'd be bitterly disappointed if it was true.
Yeah, it's rubbish. He's just trying to pin all the blame on Jones, John.
He's Donald Trump. He's the Trump of Donald Trump of rugby union. He's just changed his tune and forgetting that the internet exists.
Yeah.
It's madness.
Alternative facts, John.
Yeah, it's just fake news. It's just absolutely crazy that now he thinks that people are going to be... Well, I know sports fans tend to have a 1-week memory, but people aren't that stupid to not remember that he knew. He said he knew, and now he's trying to say that he didn't know and he'd be bitterly disappointed. Look, Eddie, just go sign with Japan. No one cares.
He's better off just owning it, McLennan. Don't try and, BS people here.
I made a mistake.
Just come out and say, look, we got this horribly wrong, and go into and try and convince people that you're the man to take Australian rugby forward, which I know would be very difficult for him to do.
I don't think anybody is the man at this point.
But it's clearly he's just trying to pin all the blame on Jones here, John, and not take any responsibility himself.
So what you got for me?
Yeah, so John, Melbourne Cup related. Mm-hmm. So Channel 7 came under fire on Tuesday, John, because they showed the big dance at the same time the Melbourne Cup was on. The big dance was in Sydney, I think, John. Yeah. So, and so a lot of people have turned Channel 7 on and just assumed that, look, because the horse racing's on, they'll show the Melbourne Cup at 3 o'clock. It was at Randwick, yes. So people have just assumed, they're showing the Melbourne Cup, and they've left it on, and then have got a rude shock at about 3:05, John, when they've gone, where's the Melbourne Cup? And then they've later realised, it was on Channel 10 after all that, John. I've done a bit of thinking about it, John. At first I sort of thought, just if they're saying it's at Randwick, grow a brain, you people, and realise that, Flemington's in Melbourne and Randwick's in Sydney. They're not showing the Cup. But the more I've thought about it, John, is that a lot of people are just not that into horse racing, John. And on a day like the Melbourne Cup, you've got a lot of the casual fans who just couldn't be bothered looking up what channel it's on. There's horse racing, it's on that channel. It's a day where you're trying to attract a lot of people who are not normally interested in horse racing. And so, yes, Channel 7 can do this, John, and they've played everybody for a fool by just pretending the Melbourne Cup didn't exist until it was over, and I think they might have interviewed someone from the Melbourne Cup there at the end. But when it was said and done, John, after the race, they basically just pretended it wasn't a thing until that point in time. The race had been run and won. I actually think it's bad PR from Channel 7 to do that to people, and they should have been more honest. And look, they can carry on like that if they want, John. They can. But I think it reflects badly on them, and they deserve a bit of PR heat over this.
Everything about mainstream media in today's day and age is terrible. Everything. Yeah. There's not a single good thing about mainstream media right now.
Yeah.
New television networks.
It's no wonder they're going downhill, John.
When I say mainstream media, I mean sorry. There's nothing single good thing about free to air television, right? Like anymore, and most paid or whatever, like Fox, whatever you classify, cable news. They do this on purpose. You know, I thought it was funny, but it's like funny mean.
Yeah.
You know, it's actually a mean thing because, like you said, people wouldn't have known. I wouldn't have known. Okay, like. We work for a sports and racing website platform. We had a Melbourne Cup podcast where we got experts on. We ran a Melbourne Cup event.
Yeah.
If I had have been fully in charge of the television, I would have put it on Channel 7. Because every single year, that's what I've done, like in the office or whatever, put it on Channel 7. And a horse race would have been on. And I would have gone... This is the Melbourne Cup.
Yeah.
And, you know, like most people... I only learnt that Melbourne Cup was at Flemington, actually, like, to be fully honest, this year. I didn't even know a place called Flemington Racecourse existed because I don't know anything about racing.
Well, that's the thing, John. Yeah, I knew it was in Melbourne, but, you know, Flemington was Melbourne. But, you know... I understand a lot of people just don't. A lot of people are just not interested in horse racing. A lot of people are just not interested in sport at all. And these are the sorts of people you want to watch the Melbourne Cup. And to sort of con them like this, it's pretty poor form.
A lot of people still wouldn't know that the Melbourne Cup is Flemington Race 7 as well. You know, like... Yeah, there's two kinds of people that are into the Melbourne Cup, actually, right? So there's the people... Oh, there's a few kinds, but, you know, the main ones. The main people that watch Melbourne Cup are people who watch a thing called the Melbourne Cup and think that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
There's the people that know you go to... There's more educated about racing type of person who go to race days and realise that there's Cup Day... which is a group of races at Flemington Racecourse in Melbourne, and race 7 of Cup Day is a race called the Melbourne Cup.
Yeah.
And then there's a more educated type of person who realises a whole bunch of races on all over the country and watch the best races throughout, like whatever's on Sky Racing, right?
Yeah.
And pay attention to all of them, bet across the... Like one of the things that I think it was either Luke or Dean who said... If you're going to go for a $3.50 bet, you may as well do a $3.50 bet on another race because a $3.50 bet is a $3.50 bet no matter what race you're betting on, right? And that's the level that they're at. Me personally, I'm at the, you know, now I understand there's Cup Day, but like, maybe 2 years ago, 1 or 2 years ago, I thought the Melbourne Cup was one race that happened on the first Tuesday in November, man. I thought that was what it was. And it's not because I'm stupid, it's because I just never cared.
You don't follow it, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the most common group of people. I mean, when we were at that event, if I was in charge of television, like I said, I would have just put it on Channel 7 because every year in the office for the past like 20 years or whatever, that's what you've done. You've put it on Channel 7 at 2:55. Yeah,
so John, the only reason, and I'm right into a lot of sports, John, and I'm not a... As you know, John, racing's not one of my strong suits. That's just the way it is. But I do have, a base knowledge of it, to a degree. But John, the only reason why I knew it was on 10 was because I scrolled through my little Foxtel EPG, what shows were on the night before, and I saw that on Channel 10 there was a Melbourne Cup preview, and I thought, well, if they're showing a preview, then they've got the rights. They're not going to be doing a preview show if they don't have the rights to it. That just doesn't happen. So that was the only reason I knew it was on 10, John, and that was the day before the race. Had it not been for that, I would have been like you and thought, well, it'll be on Channel 7. John, whether you agree with how 7 handled it or not, and whether you think that they should have, made, or at least been honest with people about the fact that it was on another channel or not, is one thing, John. But what it says to me is that Channel 7's basically given their viewers a big sort of stuff you here. Yeah. And that's not what a TV station should be doing, John. It's not good for your PR to treat your viewers that way. Again, whether you think they were obliged to tell their viewers is one thing. But a stuff you to your viewers is not... It's not smart business, John.
The free-to-air news, free-to-air media is just... They're so out of touch with the world.
Yeah.
They have their morning shows where they go out and interview people and think that's the world, but nobody cares, man. Nobody watches. It's garbage television.
No, who watches those shows, John?
Usually dogs and cats that are left at home by themselves, I think. Well, I put The Simpsons on for my dog because it's like 895 episodes.
I do have one more for you, John.
I got one more after you.
Okay, yeah. So, John, an interesting one for you here. Laura Enever, former professional surfer, has surfed her way into the Guinness World Record books, John. She's taken on a massive 4-story wave in Hawaii. Enever from Sydney tackled a 13.3 metre monster wave on, I think I got the pronunciation right, Oahu's North Shore, which eclipsed the previous biggest wave ever paddled into by a woman, a 12.8 metre mark set by Brazilian Andrea Molla in Maui in 2016. So Enever surfed that wave back in January, John, but was officially recognised on Wednesday by the Guinness Book of Records in Sydney and the World Surf League. Enever was a top 10 surfer for 7 years on the World Tour before she quit in 2018 to chase big waves. And yeah, she got presented with a Guinness World Records certificate for the largest wave paddled into by a woman. So there you go, John.
If you've ever watched big wave surfing, these people are crazy.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Like it's extreme sports. Like the most extreme. It's so insane. 13 meters. It's like a movie tsunami that he's surfing.
Yeah.
Like,
so well done to Laura Enever.
Wow.
John.
So I got one for basketball.
Yep.
If you've checked out the San Antonio Spurs rookie, Victor Wembanyama, is a Frenchman. This guy's 7'4". It's only been 7 games in the NBA this season. This guy's making waves. He is beyond ridiculous. It's something that I suggest people check out highlights on. There's one from the game on the weekend in which he gets the ball outside the 3-point line, takes 2 steps and dunks because one of his steps is halfway. They knew he was going to be good, but they didn't know that it was going to be this ridiculous. He could end up being Rookie of the Year at this rate. There's still like 750,000 games to go in the NBA. They all play each other 7 times and all this kind of stuff. But it's an interesting watch to check out. He's absolutely like the talk of the town. He's a massively gangly, like exactly what you think basketball players should look like. 7'4", towering over everyone.
7'4", wow.
Basically just needs to reach out his arm to put the ball in there.
He wouldn't need a slam dunk, would he?
No, well, his dunk is basically just him putting his arm up. It's just... like it just goes in. So that's my thing. Like it's another one to watch on the internet. Just look up some highlights for him. We didn't really have any social media comments that I want to talk about except for that. There was one on Facebook where the guy's an idiot, and just enjoy the social media manager's reply where he talked about like how many people, like who follows these people, and then they replied with a screenshot of him having 1 follower. SmartB social media managers become a bit of a smart ass. And then actually, I'll tell you one funny thing on the Backer Winner published our podcast for the Melbourne Cup. And somebody commented on them about how on their YouTube video about how amazing it was, and then said, "But the host clearly doesn't know what he's talking about." Dude, we said that. The podcast opens with, me and Dan got no idea about racing.
Yeah.
So
That's why we had Dean and Luke on.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That was the idea.
Yeah, that was
if
the
it's
whole
a sport
idea.
we don't know about, we're happy to report on it, but we look for experts to actually discuss, and we just ask their
Yeah,
questions.
it's hard to be an expert on everything, John. It is an all sports podcast, but it's difficult to be an expert on every
That
subject.
podcast was super enlightening. Even though Melbourne Cup's over, it's a good idea to watch it anyway, to learn. I now know enough about horse racing to follow horse racing. Not comfortably. I wouldn't want to be placing a lot of bets, but I was getting a lot of questions on the Melbourne Cup event that we ran, and I could answer some of them. Just some of them.
Yep.
Other ones I referred to other people.
It was a very educational podcast, John.
So before we head off, don't forget our cricket competition is currently running. If you haven't already, sign up to smartb.com.au. Make sure you select cricket as one of your preferred sports. There are a lot of entries, so watch out. Pat McDonald, one of our biggest fans. I hope full love that you get it, mate, but there's a lot of people to choose from. It's going to be randomly drawn on the 20th after the World Cup final. Win some wines, win a Kookaburra Shadow 2 cricket bat, which Yash loves.
Yes.
There's also the Subversion competition. We do sponsor Subversion Ascension. Get your tickets by going to Mosh Tix and search for Subversion Ascension. Also sign up to SmartB and select Subversion as how did you hear about us, and you can go in the draw to win 2 tickets to the first Subversion event of 2024. Again, lots of entries so far, so make sure you get in there. The Vegas competition is coming. It is coming, I promise. I just now want to wait for that boxing announcement to be made. And don't forget to watch Club Prairie Fire. I did enter their competition to try and win the shoes. I didn't win. It was hilarious, though, the story. Some guy got hit by a ball from the field over.
Right, wow.
It was a massive 6.
Oh, it must have been. It wasn't Glenn Maxwell playing on the next ground, was it, John?
The cricket match next door to them actually hit him in the head. So well done to that guy. Well deserved. Before we go, make sure you follow SmartB at SmartB app on all socials. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Hit that like button. We'll see you on Monday for previews for the World Cup semi-final.
Yeah, we'll have the final group standings, John. The group stage of the Cricket World Cup will be done by then, so we'll be able to look at the final standings and sort of look ahead to those semi-finals. John, I'm trying to remember what days.
Wednesday.
So Wednesday is one of them, and I think Thursday is the other one.
Yeah, it's Wednesday, Thursday, and then the actual final is on Sunday.
Okay, so we can preview the Wednesday one on Monday, John.
Yep.
Actually, we may as well preview both because
yeah.
it'll be a short turnaround after our Thursday podcast going into the Thursday one. So, we'll have final group standings from the Cricket World Cup on Monday, and we'll have full previews of the 2 semi-finals on Wednesday and Thursday.
Most likely to be India versus New Zealand and Australia versus South Africa.
Yeah, well, definitely Australia versus South Africa, and most likely New Zealand in 4th spot against India. There's an absolute... there's basically a very little chance it could be Pakistan, John, but you never know.
Well, if those aliens land tomorrow, Pakistan will also make the finals.
Yes, exactly.
So, see you all on the flip side. Happy Friday. Have a good weekend of cricket, and I'll see you on Monday, Dan.
Have a good weekend, John. See you, mate.
Bye, producer John.
Bye-bye.